Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this event as part of the 2Rivers Festival celebration that celebrates and appreciates the Speed and Eramosa rivers. Our hearty thanks to our event host organization for sharing their passion for our rivers with you and for all of you for attending. This festival is run and organized by volunteers and involves many community organizations. We'd appreciate if you show your support to these organizations for doing such great work in our communities. We'd also like to give a shout out and ask for your support to our event sponsor and advertisers, the Guelph Outdoor School, who are generously making this event possible. You can see all of our advertisers on our website and in our booklet. We have 40 wonderful events in this festival this year, so have a look through our website and make sure to RSVP for all of those events that are of interest to you. This festival is a project of the Wellington Water Watchers. It is our deep hope that you fall in love with our rivers and will want to protect them further. We just wanted to let you know that this event will be recorded, so you'll be able to view it afterwards. So if you are not comfortable with your face being in it, we recommend turning your video off. And we also ask that you remain muted for the duration of this presentation. If you have any questions, you can file those through the chat box, and I will read them out to Susan. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Susan. So enjoy this event this evening, and thank you so much for your role in making this festival a great success.
So I'd like to welcome you to our virtual walking tour. Given the weather and the threats of rain, this may be the best way to do it this year, rather than walking on the river. So I'd like to take you on a kind of story hunting trip. But let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I'm just going to get rid of this so I can see it properly. I'm Susan Ratcliffe, and I'm the president of the local Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, and also the site coordinator for Doors Open Guelph. ACO is a provincial organization with 25 branches, and our mission is basically education and advocacy to encourage the conservation and reuse of structures, district, and landscapes. So my feeling is that this area of the Silver Creek that we're going to visit is something that you need to watch out for and make sure that it stays safe. So we're going to look at the Silver Creek and the Howitt Pond area. This is a map of Guelph water courses that's on the guelph.ca website under maps. So the area we're going to look at, the Silver Creek, is the area circled in red. So you can see the other water courses that have been mapped. I'm going to show you a couple of other maps as well. So from the University of Guelph's map page, this is the area that we're looking at. So if you go for a walk, you're going to start on the other, I'm on the south side of the river on Water Street, so I'm always saying the other side of the river, and I will take you to the exact site where we're going to start. This is an air photo from 1930 in the University of Guelph area map collection, and this is the Silver Creek area that we're going to look at. But I want you to look on this air photograph. This is the Speed River that I'm tracing with my pointer. And you'll notice that there's several islands up in this area. So I'm going to refer to them a little later. Jeremy Shute, an active river person, geographer, partner in Shared Solutions, has mapped all of the underground streams in Guelph. And if you want to take a trip up the Pond Creek, or virtual, I guess it will be, he's doing that on June 16th. So my river, the Silver Creek, it goes up this way. It follows most of it's underground past the Howitt Pond, goes all the way up here and ends sort of in this marshy area behind houses on Exhibition Street and goes up in this direction. The Pond Creek is the only other above ground creek in Guelph, and it's just between Edinburgh and Gordon Street, and it goes up this way and ends up at GCVI and then continues up, and the marshy land you see on Edinburgh Road outside Sisters Hospital, that's where the Pond Creek ends. The picture of the tunnel is from the Pond Creek, and Jeremy will take you down inside it actually to see that tunnel. So that's on June 16th. So we're going to start on the north side of the river. So if you were to park at the skate park parking lot just at Edinburgh and Wellington Streets, and then follow the paved bicycle path west, you would pass on the left in the picture on the left, the sort of turtle nesting area, it's called. And if you turn right, turn left and go down to the river, you'll see this trodden pathway along the river. So that's where you would need to walk about 2 or 3 minutes along this path. And then you'll see the beginnings of the Silver Creek. So I just want to show you the area. And you're getting a little overview. That's the bridge that we would start at if we were walking. And you're listening to James Gordon sing his song. So when you get, when you're at that little bridge, then if you walk to just below the Hanlon and then go back a little bit to the right, you'll come to the crosswalk across Wellington Street. I don't want you to be running across anywhere else, but if you cross at that crosswalk, then you'll end up at a parking lot of some apartment buildings. So I'd just like to show you another little view of the area around, the area around there. If I can make the video go, here we go. So you're looking at it as it comes out from under Wellington Street. And we're in the parking lot of these apartment buildings. And this is the bridge now over the part of the Silver Creek where we'll start our walk. So we're going to take a look at the area north of here. So just to tell you a little bit about, about Wellington Street, it actually was the top braid of the Silver Creek. If you look at this 1862 map, you can see the islands that I mentioned in that air view. There were 10 islands between Gordon Street, which is here, and just beyond the Silver Creek where we are. Just to orient you, this is Edinburgh Road, and there were what was called the 3 bridges over Edinburgh Road. And this is Bristol Street. So you can see that Wellington Street that we drive on now, you're actually driving on the north braid of the Silver Creek, or the Speed River rather. It had 2 different braids. I'd just like to point out a couple of other things on here. I've put in red the Pond Creek. This is where we're going to walk up the Silver Creek, across Waterloo Avenue. And in 1862, this was the Howitt Pond. The house here was Sheriff Grange's house, and that's existing now on Meadowview Drive. next year we hope it'll be on Doors Open Guelph. It was on in 2016, and it will be on again. As you look across the river, we'll look at the King's Mill House here, and I'll show you that in a picture a little later. And also in this section just beyond, my mouse keeps right here, this is the Guelph Bible grounds where Mr. Howitt's house was, and I'll talk about that in a little while. So this is what happened to the top braid of the speed. So this is a photograph from the Guelph Mercury from 1969. And if you look here, this is the top braid that's being filled in and paved. They called it Memorial Drive when they first opened it. And the other braid of the speed, the one that I live on and that we're talking about, is this one. And this is Gordon Street. So quite an interesting sort of aerial shot of the burying of one half of the river. Now, the Silver Creek was strong enough to power 2 mills. And I'd like to take you up the river a little bit. And the house, just as you walk, you're going to walk on the left side of the Silver Creek, which is here, because this right side is owned by the condominium, so it's private. But what you're looking at is the back of the original Phoenix Mill. And this piece has been added. And as you walk up this side of the Silver Creek, this is the old Phoenix Mill that's right here. So it was built, just let me find my dates, in the 1850s to draw on the power of that creek, if you can believe it. And the building is now designated by the city of Guelph, which means it's permanently preserved. You're looking in the left-hand picture at the front of it, and I'll show you that in our next little video. So you're going to walk up the left side between the Silver Creek and the red apartment building until you come to Waterloo Avenue. So when you come up, this is what you'll see. And I want to give you a little brief overview of Waterloo Avenue, because I could spend 2 hours talking just about the heritage of Waterloo Avenue. So I'll truncate that a little bit and tell you about some of the significant things. So as we tour around and look west on Waterloo Avenue, we'll be talking about the West End. We'll circle around and look at the Orange Hall. Then we'll walk up that sidewalk. We'll talk about the car barns, the Greystone Apartments. But I just want to take you a little bit. We're going over the bridge because now the creek goes under this bridge and under Waterloo Avenue. You can just see it there between the trees. And then we're going to walk along just a little bit of Waterloo Avenue to see where the front of the Phoenix Mill is. So it's been beautifully restored, and it's built of local limestone. It was a grist mill, and it was located on the periphery of town, and it drew on the water power of the Silver Creek that was left over from the mill that's a little north of there that we'll talk about in a second. So you can see the designation plaque on the front of it. We'll just stop that, go on to the next slide. So if we were to go to the very end of Waterloo Avenue in about 1870, we would have seen a complex much like this. Now, I want to talk to you about this because you can see that this is the Silver Creek Brewery, first established by John Sleeman in 1851. He came to Canada from Cornwall. He went to the Niagara area and he had a brewery, and he also had his distillery called the Spring Mill. which is why John Sleeman has built now the Spring Mill distillery for us in Guelph. But he was looking for a better area to brew his beer. And he had water tested from all around towns in Ontario. And he found out that the water in the Silver Creek and the Speed River, which is just beyond this building behind here, was the best quality and closest to Cornwall beer, Cornwall water, which is very interesting to produce the kind of beer that he wanted to produce. Now, it's traditional in industrial pictures in these times in the Victorian era to show black smoke coming from the chimney. That meant that the plant was operating and prosperous. To show the factory much larger than it originally was, and to show the activity. So you can see this would be Waterloo Avenue before it was paved. And also I'd like to talk about this building right here. So you might know that house as the Manor. This is what it looks like now. When George Sleeman built it in 1891, it was the largest house in Guelph. It had 50 rooms. It was trimmed with mahogany and ebony, and had chairs made of beer barrels, and it had a glass beer bottle bottom sidewalk that Mrs. Sleeman built that went from Waterloo Avenue to the house. So it is a sad kind of echo of its former self in the picture that you can see of Sue's Inn. And the other thing I want to talk about in connection with this end of Waterloo Avenue is the Guelph Street Railway. This is Mrs. Sleeman putting the first spike in 1895. Now, the electric street railway was an amazing thing, and it's too bad we don't have it now. This picture of it, of the car in front of the Silver Creek Brewery, and George Sleeman wanted to have a second shift at night at his brewery. And so he wanted the railway to come out so that his workers had a way of getting to work at night. It was an electric railway, as I said. How modern, right? And this is a picture of the car barns, the building that charged up the electric railway at night. It was built in 1895. It was closed in 1997. And then in 2006, it opened as the Greystone Residences. And this is what it looks like now. We're going to walk right beside it. Tom Lammard did a beautiful job of restoring it. It was on Doors Open in 2006. He added the little piece in the middle that joined the car barns with the charging house. So, and a magnificent, wonderful job of saving heritage. I just wanted to show you a map and give you some facts about the electric street railway that ran along Waterloo Avenue. It opened, as you can see, in 1895, and those are all the dates of the various owners of it. So for a nickel a ride until the 1950s, you could travel 8 miles of track on either 8 closed cars or 3 open cars. But look at where it went. It went all the way up to Woodlawn Cemetery. The city in 1902 contracted to have Riverside Park here so people could take the train all the way up. It went right down to Carden Street and then was extended to the Ontario Agricultural College, now the University of Guelph, of course. You can see the islands in the river, and you can see that it went down to Silver Creek, and it had a little jog down to what's called the Quarry. Now that is at present day the Dolime Quarry. So that was part of the structure so that the cars would go down there and get materials and take materials to the quarry. Again, I did a talk about the quarries in Guelph. last week, and they should be available in a recorded time. There were several quarries along Waterloo Avenue. We're going to look at David Kennedy's quarry. So here's our Silver Creek. We are right here, right now. And the Howett Pond that went up, as I mentioned, David Kennedy had a big quarry that went along the back of his property on Waterloo Avenue. I live near the Matthew Bell Quarry on the other side of Water Street. This is a photograph of the back of the Kennedy quarries on Waterloo Avenue in about 1960, when they had been pretty well closed down. So a lot of our limestone heritage came from the area of the Silver Creek as well. Now let's walk a little further up. So if we were to cross Waterloo Avenue, walk on that sidewalk that's between the Orange Hall and the gray stone residences, you would come to the site of the Red Mill. And the Red Mill is not there now, it's gone. It was taken down in 1880, but it was quite a building. It was called the Red Mill because it was painted red. It was built in 1830, and it was large enough to hold big dances in on the second floor or third floor. You can see there. It was a big open area. So people like to go there and have parties and dance and have a wonderful time in that wooden building. Unfortunately, as I said, it didn't last and it was torn down. Well, we're going to look at, this is the dam that's now, it was closed in 2005 and taken out so that the water could flow down to the river and drain the pond that we're going to look at on the way up. So there is a trail that goes along both on the east side and the west side, but you're better to stay on the west side. You can see the edge of the trail right where that big tree is, because then you can look down. Otherwise, you're going to be stranded on the other side of the pond. So if we go up past the broken dam, this is what you'll see now. This is Howett's Pond. Now, you might say, what? This is not a pond. This is where the pond was. This is the remnants of the Silver Creek. So it still flows along in a kind of meandering path around what was bulrushes the first time I walked up here in 2006. And now is the invasive Phragmites that have taken over the pond, unfortunately. But it was a pond that was the mill pond for the Red Mill and for the Phoenix Mill about 20 years later. But it also was an area that was popular with this particular bird. Now you won't see them anymore. They're all gone. And this is the passenger pigeons. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the passenger pigeons because it's an amazing story. And it was significant in this area of Guelph. In 1882, there were large flocks that flew over Guelph. How large were the flocks? That picture down in the lower left is not Guelph, but gives you one idea. In 1860, they were estimated as having billions of passenger pigeons. They darkened the skies when they flew over. Round Niagara Falls, one was noted and measured as much as they could. It was 1 mile in breadth from horizon to horizon. It took 14 hours for that flock to fly by, and the estimation was 3.7 billion pigeons in that flock. In Guelph, in 1835, there was an immense rookery that stretched along the Speed River from Guelph to Rockwood, there were so many pigeons that landed that the trees were broken down with their weight, and that there were wagon loads that were picked up that the farmers took home to eat. It was said that they used to take a fishing rod and wave it in the air to knock some pigeons out of the sky to eat for their supper. George Sleeman had shooting matches on what was called the Sleeman Flats behind the brewery that were in that big picture I showed you on December 6, 1880. And I'd just like to read you a little bit from the newspaper, from the Guelph Mercury of December 6, 1880. Pigeon shooting on Saturday afternoon. A friendly pigeon pop took place on the last near Sleeman's Brewery between Mayor Sleeman and John Leanley. The following is the result. Leanley 3 pigeons, Sleeman 8. A team match between Guelph and Aberfoyle netted 200 birds on November 8, 1881. So there were huge flocks, but by 1901, the last pigeon was shot. And around 1890, the last one was seen in the Guelph Collegiate area, which actually is the end of the Pond Creek. I'd like to show you another interesting picture from the 1930s for Howitt Pond. This is exactly the same view as you looked at in my picture taken 2 weeks ago with the Phragmites. This was actually a beach that was created by the area residents. The city provided truckloads of sand every year to make the beach. There were huts for change rooms. You can see one of them in the back. And the kids and the residents built a diving tower. There was enough water in that pond. And the kids connected a zip line that went from the trees on one side of the pond to the other side of the pond. So that's an interesting change in the pond. And when they opened up the dam in 2005, the water all went away, and that created the bullfrogs and the Phragmites that we see now. So we're walking up the Silver Creek, but this is the Howitt Pond. So who was Mr. Howitt? The pond and the area we're going to walk in next is called Howitt Park. And this is the exit if you go up Meadowview to Howitt Park. So who was he? He was Quaker John Howitt. And this is his picture, a drawing of him, not a photograph. He arrived in Guelph in 1834, and he bought 5 acres of land, which pretty well stretched from Stone Road all the way north across the river, probably up to Paisley. We're not quite sure where the 5 acres was. Of course, there was no Hanlon Expressway, so it covered that and also included the area that's the quarry now. He raised shorthorns and Southdown sheep. He had the largest library in Upper Canada in his house that's now on the Bible grounds. And he also seemed to raise children, I thought you'd like to know, because there are a lot of Howitts still around who are largely lawyers, doctors, and judges. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters by wife number 1, and he had 5 sons and 5 daughters by wife number 2. So I guess he earned the right to have a pond and a park named after him. The Howitt Park was created in 1962 in this area. So if you continue walking, beside on the east side of the pond, follow the path. You'll follow it kind of up a small hill, And you'll be able to look over to the left. Now, you will not see this view now because the trees are all filled in. This is one I took about 2 years ago when I first wanted to do this for. And you're looking at the back of the homewood. It's not the homewood that we know now. The picture on the bottom right is what it looks like now as it was restored by Frank Valerian. It took him more than 25 years to do this restoration. So it's at 19 Woody Crest, if you want to walk by the front of it. It was built in 1850. Mr. Kingsmill bought 7 acres from Mr. Howitt to build this house, but it's got a plaque outside it to tell you that it was the childhood home of the Charles Edmund Kingsmill, who became an admiral and was actually the person who established the Canadian Navy in 1920. So a significant site, not just because it's a beautiful house, but a significant site in Canadian naval history. And the pond actually belongs to the house, such as it is, the pond that's left. So if we keep walking up the path, you can't miss it, it's a good footpath. You'll come to this playground area. And just over here in the playground, right here, is this poor bedraggled plaque. It would be nice if someone would donate a little money to restore these plaques that tell about our river, and this one is on the Silver Creek. So if you go up to it, it's really faded and it was hard to show you another picture of it, but basically I'm telling you what was on it. So if you continue on this path, keep following the path, and you still can see the river, you'll be able to tell why there were quarries, because it's quite a way down by now. If you're an intrepid climber, you can climb down and walk right along beside the Silver Creek, but it's quite rugged and a lot of fallen trees. So if we keep going, we'll come up a hill to the railway. So I'd just like to show you a vista of this railway, because I could spend another 2 hours telling you of this area's significance. So we're just taking a little shot all the way around. I'll be talking about that path in a minute. So we're looking at the new park that's on the other side, looking down towards the junction at Edinburgh Road. Looking back, this is the path you would have come down to reach the railway. And you can see that it's heavily wooded, and as I said 2 weeks ago, the trees were coming out. So this is a significant railway in Guelph's history. I'd just like to show you a little bit about this area. As I said, I won't talk another 2 hours, but I'll tell you a little bit about the junction area. So this map is from the 1860s. We are standing right here where that little diamond is. If we were walking in our virtual walk, that's where we're standing. So you can see that it says the Mill Pond, so that's the Howitt Pond. This is the Galt and Guelph Railway that goes down to the station that was actually on Edinburgh Road near the Exhibition Park. And this is the Grand Trunk that crosses it right here at the junction. And that's the freight station, is now actually the junction bar, grill, and the Granite Homes showroom, which would have been on Doors Open this year. And this is a sample of the kind of trains that would have run on it. This train is from 1859. My map is from 1868. And this fascinates me every time I talk about it. The Grand Trunk used to go along to this area near Edinburgh Road in the 1920s, 1930s, and they would unload the elephants. This is actually a picture of the elephants being unloaded. Beautiful circus cars, a beautiful horses and some tigers and lions, and they would walk them across along the tracks. It's now the walking trail that goes over to Exhibition Park. And they would walk all the animals over to the Exhibition Park where a circus was held. And the school children were let off for a half a day's holiday to follow the parade of the animals. About 12 years ago, when I was doing another walking tour, a lady told me that story. So I think it's an amazing story of what happened in the circus in Guelph that no longer exists. So that's our junction area and the railway that crosses the Silver Creek at that particular point. So we're nearing the end of our tour now. So we can ask two things: where did the Silver Creek go? And what happened to it? So you can follow it up a little further. This is north of the railway tracks. You have to come down a kind of steep hill to see it. And if you followed it just a little bit further along, maybe less than a half a kilometer, that tunnel that you see right there is a constructed one. It's not an old one. And that's where the Silver Creek disappears, under the Lafarge lands. So it has gone from above ground at this particular point. But I just want to show you the most beautiful place that's right beside where the left-hand picture is. Let me show you one more place. If you were to walk a little further, just near where that modern tunnel is, on the left side of the path, you'll see the Lafarge development, which is pretty sad now since they saw fit to cut down the trees a couple of years ago. That will be the site of a new mixed-use development. You're looking towards the Hanlon. You can vaguely see a car in the distance. On the right side is a new park, and I'm not sure of the name of it, whether it's still Howitt Park. It's pretty bare now, but it does have some trees planted in it. And you can cycle and walk dogs and do all kinds of things, and you will end up at Paisley Road with that park. So if we were to go down just beyond the tracks, down to the Silver Creek, this is what you would find, and this is where I'll end my walk. You would find this beautiful, beautiful limestone railway tunnel. So I'm standing actually in the Silver Creek, taking this picture, looking back down towards Howitt Park. And I'd like to thank you for going on the walk with me. If you wanted to walk back now if you've left your car in the parking lot, you can walk back on the trail, or you can go back down Meadowview or Woody Crest and see the two houses that I mentioned. So I'd like to thank you very much. And Megan will now take over and ask any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Susan. That was really wonderful and very informative. I hope everyone else learned as much as I did. So if you have any questions, please feel free to filter them through the chat box, and we'll just hold a few minutes open for that. I'm seeing some lovely comments here. Thank you, Susan. You are amazing. I agree. Thank you. That was an excellent presentation, and that was fascinating. So those are some wonderful comments. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to put them in there, or as always, reach out to us. Here's a question. Where did you get the elephant picture?
I got it from the Wellington County Museum website. Their archives. They have several. They have pictures of the circus wagons and the horses and all of the other animals that were unloaded there. Beautiful painted wagons. I did a talk last year. Was Victory School's 100th birthday, so I did a talk to the children in kindergarten and grade 1 about the exhibition park and the circus, and they were fascinated seeing those pictures of the animals that used to be right there outside of their school. So you can go on the website and see those pictures. They're very, very interesting. From in the 1930s, those are.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm seeing some more comments filter in here, but I'm not seeing any more questions. So maybe we'll just leave another minute or so open for that. Thank you everyone for joining this event today. As you know, this is an event of the 2Rivers Festival, and we are recording these events, so please RSVP to anything that seems interesting to you, even if you're not able to attend, so you can watch the recording and share it with your friends and family. I'm seeing some more comments. Thought the Sleeman Brewery was near Silver Creek. Was it in a different location before?
The brewery itself, if you go and stand in front of what's now called the Manor and look across the road, it would have been right there where the interchange on the Hanlon is. It was demolished to build that interchange on the Hanlon. So it was a limestone building, and it was people ask about tunnels in Guelph when I do my tours. I'm actually going to do a talk, I hope next fall, for the library about tunnels. There was a tunnel between the Sleeman house and the brewery across the road, went underneath Waterloo Avenue. And so that's how close it was. But it's entirely gone. There's nothing left of those buildings. The manor itself, the Sleeman house, had beautiful orchards behind it. And he even built a pleasure park when he built the electric railway, with skating in the winter and a swimming pool for the summer, so that people could take the street railway right out there. So amazing, Guelph had a street railway in 1895, an electric one at that.
Very interesting. All right, that looks like all the questions for now. A few more comments. Thank you. You have a wealth of knowledge, very much so agree. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to end the event now, and hope to see you all soon on our next 2River events. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks, Megan, for hosting.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.